So which one's the widest shoe? It's a question I often get when I'm reviewing new shoes is this shoe actually wide or is this a wide shoe? And I'm here today to basically tell you a little bit about shoe widths and how they vary across the whole shape of the actual shoe, but then also how materials can come into play as well. And it's not just about one metric. Is it wide? Is it narrow? There's actually quite a lot of nuance to this that I think we should get into today. So I'm also going to go through the widths of all these different shoes that I've got here and basically show you the metrics as I've actually measured these shoes, but then also go into the feel of the width across the shape of the whole shoe, because that's actually what's more important to you and also helps you try and find the right fit for you and the right shoe for you. So if you don't know me, I'm Nick from Barefoot Run Review, and I'm passionate about foot shaped shoes and barefoot shoes and anything that helps your foot function in the way that it should. And all these shoes that I've got here, I've put through extensive tests, and I'm trying to give you the information to try and find the right fitting shoe for your foot because we're all slightly different and we all have different needs. So let's start with a quick example. So this is the Freet Calver, and I've often referred to it as a really wide shoe. And there's actually a reason behind that, but at the same time, you need to understand what I'm actually referring to when I say wide. So as you can see here, it's got a really, really wide kind of toe box around here to help your toes splay quite a bit. But also at the same time, there's a lot of midfoot room as well. And this can help you if you still got a wide midfoot and as well as the wider forefoot. Whereas some people may differ and they may be a bit narrower through the midfoot and even into the heel as well. You can see this from example if we look at another one, so an Escalante 4 here, you can still see it's nice and wide in this toe box, which is going to allow that splay and even into that forefoot there. But when it comes to the midfoot here, it's actually quite narrow. For me, it's something that I've actually had a problem with in Ouchers in the past. I find the midfoot to be too tight for me, and that's because my width actually extends down into the midfoot as well, and it's actually even a little wider in that area. This is where it really comes into the personal foot shape that you have and trying to match that to the shoe in front of you. So just to add a little bit of nuance into this, if we jump back to this Freet Calver, I did say this is wide before, you can see in the forefoot and the midfoot here, and actually technically in the heel too, it's kind of wide. Well, interestingly, on the metrics, it actually measures quite similar to the Vivo Primus Trail. Whereas you look at this, the silhouette of it, well, you can see that it narrows down quite a bit in the midfoot on the Vivo Primus Trail. And this really is where it comes down to materials. If you see the materials around this midfoot here, they're actually kind of this plasticky, very rigid, solid material. And this won't allow for any type of expansion. And this will basically restrict your foot from moving around a little bit from when you're walking and running. And basically, you won't be able to expand into the shoe as much. So if you are wider through this midsection here, it may actually feel a little tight for you. Whereas if we look at this Calver again, this material is really, really flexible. So if you are pushing out the side a little bit around here, you're not going to have that same restrictive feeling and it's going to feel more comfortable for you. So this is where personal fit and specifically for each shoe can come down to one, your foot shape, but two, the actual shoe shape. If we then jump back to the Escalante 4, I did say that this was a really narrow midfoot before, and I have a wider midfoot. Well, how do I fit my foot into this? Well, the thing is, this upper is really, really flexible in the end. So after a few runs, I found that the material relaxed and I was able to actually play with this lacing a little bit to give me a little bit more space down the side of my foot here and ended up fine. But if this was a solid material, and similar to the Lone Peak, which is a little bit more solid through here, I just cannot make it work because it's just too restrictive for my foot type. So now let's have a little look at Zero shoes. So this is the Speed Force 2. And a lot of people complain that Zero shoes aren't wide enough. But again, I'll basically say, where are you having the difficulty in the width? If you look down at this toe box, you can see that it tapers quite aggressively around this big toe area here. And if you have a wider toe splay, it's understandable why you may actually feel a little restricted around here. The other thing that you can see is this upper is really, really flexible, especially in this midfoot area around here. And this is where the width actually comes from. It actually measures quite similar to other barefoot shoes in the midfoot here. It doesn't measure quite as wide in the forefoot here. So again, there's more nuance to the conversation that has to be had. And by labeling it as just saying it's a shoe or a narrower barefoot shoe, well, it doesn't tell the whole story, because if you actually have a wider midfoot but a narrower forefoot, this could actually still work for you as it does for me. And the last really, really interesting example that I've got is basically this Vivo Biome, a Vivo barefoot shoe, which has been 3D printed specifically from my foot scans. So technically, this should be perfect for my foot. And if you see around the side here, we've got some high walls that come round, and these are actually kind of stiff. So if I had any fit issues in these, they would be very uncomfortable for me. From the metrics, it's really interesting because this is actually the widest midfoot shoe that I have. And it kind of makes sense from what I've been actually telling you just before, that my midfoot is actually a little wider. And because it's got that width, it's actually super comfortable for me there. Looking into the toe box is actually kind of similar to many of the other shoes that I have down here. And obviously that shows that basically my foot is not too different from many of the barefoot brands out there.
So how do you find out what your foot shape is and also what shoe is for you? Well, there's a quick way, and basically stand up, take your shoes and socks off, and just look at your feet. If you look at the silhouette of your feet, you'll see a shape, and basically you find out if you've got a wide toe splay, if you've got a wider forefoot, or even a wider midfoot, a wider heel. And you could go one step further than that and basically use a pen and paper and just trace around your foot. And you'd be able to actually take some measurements on that with a ruler and put some metrics to this as well. Basically, what you want to be doing is having a look at the shape of your foot and trying to match that to the silhouette of a shoe. So trying to see if that midfoot is wider or narrower, or the forefoot is wider or narrower, and even into the heel as well. And try and use this as a guide. It's not supposed to be be all and end all. There are aspects of shoes which basically adjust the feel when you put them on, even though the silhouette of it may actually look a little bit off for you. So hopefully now you can actually understand like the different shapes and the different varieties of shoes that you actually have on offer. And if you're still looking for a shoe or trying to find the perfect fit, well, just leave a comment down below and I'll try and help you out and try and find the right fit for one, your foot, but also the situation that you're looking to use that shoe in. If it's running, if it's trail running, if it's hiking, for example. And that's about it.